The morning mist rolled across Althorpe like a ghost from the past. Prince William gripped the steering wheel, his heart heavy with memories he'd tried to bury for decades. Nearly 30 years had passed since he last came here alone, since the world said goodbye to the mother who changed it forever. But today wasn't just about remembrance. Something sacred had been disturbed, something hidden beneath the very soil where Diana rests. The call from the estate had been urgent, cryptic. "Your Highness, there's been an incident on the island." What William was about to uncover would not only rewrite royal history, it would change everything he thought he knew about his mother, and about himself. Before we step into this extraordinary true story, take a second to hit like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who still carries Diana's memory in their heart. Because what you about to hear isn't just royal history, it is a mother's legacy uncovered, a truth buried for centuries finally revealed. Ready? Let's return to the island where it all began. The morning mist curled over the quiet English countryside, soft and spectral, like the breath of ghosts who refused to rest. At the heart of Northamptonshire, the Althorpe estate lay shrouded in silence, its ancient trees standing like sentinels, watching over secrets older than memory itself. Prince William drove slowly through the grand gates, the tires of his black Range Rover whispering against the wet gravel. It had been nearly 30 years since he'd come here alone, not as a prince, not as the heir to the throne, but as a son. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned pale. He could almost hear the echo of his own 12-year-old footsteps on that long, heartbreaking walk behind his mother's coffin. The world had watched that boy in silent mourning, but this moment, was different. Now, there were no cameras, no public eyes, only the stillness of the morning and the ache of what might be waiting for him. 3 days earlier, the phone call had come. "Your Royal Highness," said James Morrison, the long-serving estate manager, his voice trembling through the line. "There's been an incident on the island." "The island?" William asked, instantly alert. "The one where your mother rests, sir. We think you should see it for yourself." The words lingered like smoke in his mind, unsettling and urgent. Something had disturbed the sacred ground, the very place Diana had chosen for her final peace. As he drove deeper into the estate, memories began to stir like ghosts in the fog. He remembered his mother walking here, barefoot sometimes, laughing at the wind, her hair wild and golden. She had always loved this place, the lake, the stillness, the 4 lime trees that stood in perfect symmetry around her memorial. The car slowed as the lake came into view. William parked and stepped out, the cold air biting through his coat. The world was silent but for the soft rustle of leaves. Then he saw it, the small wooden bridge that led to the island, and beyond it the place where his mother rested. But something was wrong. The earth near the memorial was uneven, broken. Tools lay scattered on the ground.
A man stepped out from behind one of the lime trees. "Your Highness," said James Morrison, bowing slightly. His weathered face was pale. "Thank you for coming so quickly." William's gaze swept across the disturbed soil. "What happened here, James?" James hesitated. "We had those terrible storms last week, sir. The wind nearly brought down one of the lime trees. When the groundskeepers tried to secure it." He paused, lowering his voice. "They found something underneath." William frowned. "Something? What kind of something?" James exchanged a glance with another man standing quietly near the water's edge, Tom Bradley, the head groundskeeper, a man who had worked this land since his youth. Tom stepped forward, removing his cap. "Begging your pardon, sir. My spade hit something hard while I was digging to steady the tree. At first, I thought it was a stone, but it wasn't. It was metal, buried deep." The air seemed to still. "Metal?" William repeated softly. "Yes, sir. A container of some sort. Copper, maybe bronze. Old, very old. We stopped digging the moment we realized it was near the memorial. We thought you'd want to see it before we went any further." William walked slowly toward the disturbed ground. His pulse quickened as he crouched beside the hole. The soil was damp, dark, and recently turned, and there, Half buried beneath tangled roots was a faint glimmer of something metallic, green with age. He reached out, brushing the dirt gently away with gloved fingers. It was rectangular, about the size of a large book. Ornate engravings ran across its surface. Strained patterns, almost like old heraldic symbols. "Have you seen anything like this before?" he asked quietly. Tom shook his head. "Never, sir. Not in all my years here." James removed his cap, rubbing his forehead. "The island's been part of the Spencer State for centuries, sir. Long before your mother chose it as her resting place. Whatever this is, it's been here a long time." William stood, staring at the metal box as if it were breathing. The weight of history seemed to press down around him. He could almost hear his mother's voice, gentle, curious. "Don't you ever wonder what secrets our ancestors left behind, William?" She had loved history, loved discovering the truth behind family legends. Now, standing over the soil that cradled her memory, William felt that same pull, a sense that something was calling out from beneath the earth. "I want this kept private," he said firmly. "No one outside this island is to know about it. Not yet." "Yes, Your Highness," James replied. They covered the exposed area carefully, marking the edges with soft flags for later excavation. As William turned to leave, he paused at the base of the memorial. The simple inscription caught his eye. "Diana, Princess of Wales. A life lived with grace and dignity." He traced the words with his gloved fingers, feeling an ache he could not name. "Mother," he whispered, "what have you left behind for me to find?" The wind stirred the trees, their branches sighing softly as if in answer. Back at the main house, William stood at a window overlooking the estate, the fog now beginning to lift. His mind raced. If something had been buried there centuries ago, why at Diana's Island? Had she known? Somehow? Had she felt drawn to that place for a reason that went deeper than peace or beauty? The thought sent a shiver through him. He turned to James. "Get me proper equipment. Quietly. And bring Dr. Saracen from Oxford. She's handled royal conservation work before. Tell her this must remain confidential." "As you wish, sir," James said, already reaching for his phone. When the room fell silent again, William found himself staring at an old photograph on the mantel. Diana holding him as a boy, sunlight in her hair. She had once said, "You'll understand someday, darling, why truth always finds its way to the surface." He hadn't known what she meant then, but as the sun broke through the thinning fog, casting a golden shimmer over the distant lake, he understood it now. Something buried beneath that island had waited, not for centuries, but for him. And whatever it was, it would change everything. The next morning broke clear and cold over Oldthorpe. Sunlight spilled across the lake, gilding the surface with ripples of gold. The fog that had haunted yesterday's air had lifted, as if even nature sensed something was about to be revealed. Prince William stood at the edge of the bridge once more, hands in his coat pockets, eyes fixed on the island ahead. The stillness was profound. The only sounds were the whisper of reeds and the faint creak of wood beneath his boots. Behind him, James Morrison approached quietly, followed by Tom Bradley and a small team carrying archaeological tools, brushes, gloves, soft trowels, protective cases. Dr. Saracen arrived moments later, her presence calm but commanding. A respected archaeologist, she had worked on countless royal preservation projects. Still, she looked around the lake with reverence. "Your Highness," she greeted gently, "this place, it's sacred. I'll treat it that way." William nodded. "Thank you, Dr. Chen. Whatever we find here must be handled with absolute care and discretion." They crossed the bridge together, the air filled with a hum of anticipation. The team began to work methodically, brushing away layers of soil from around the buried object. Every movement was slow, respectful, as if they were unearthing not an artifact, but a memory. As more of the container emerged, William felt his pulse quicken. It was larger than he remembered, perhaps the size of a thick family Bible, and the metal glinted faintly under the sunlight. Its color was deep, age green, the patina of centuries. "Bronze," Dr. Chen murmured, kneeling beside it. 18th century craftsmanship, perhaps earlier. Her fingers traced the faint engravings along its edges. "Look here. See the markings? These aren't random. That's heraldic iconography, possibly Spencer family symbols. William crouched beside her, his breath visible in the cold air. How old would that make it? She glanced up, thoughtful. Potentially 200 years. Maybe more. But the fact that it was buried beneath one of these lime trees, that's unusual. This wasn't placed here by accident. James shifted uneasily, removing his cap. This island's been here for centuries, say. Long before your mother chose it for her rest. It's possible your ancestors used it for private reflection, maybe even for family rituals. Or secrets, William said quietly. The word lingered, heavy in the air. Dr. Chen looked at him, curious. Do you want to open it here, Your Highness? For a moment, he was tempted to see immediately what history had hidden so long. But instinct told him to wait. No, he said finally. We'll take it to your lab in Oxford. Somewhere safe. I don't want to risk damaging anything. Wise choice, she agreed. Whatever's inside has survived centuries underground. It deserves patience. Tom and James prepared a padded crate for the container. As they carefully lifted it from the ground, William felt something inside him shift, the strange sensation that destiny itself was being disturbed. When they placed it in the crate, Dr. Chen paused, examining one side more closely. There's a date, she said softly. William leaned in. The engraving was faint, almost erased by time. 1786. William drew in a slow breath. The year of the first Earl Spencer, he murmured. George Spencer. He was the one who transformed Althorpe into what it is today. Then this could have belonged to him, Dr. Chen said, her tone suddenly cautious, as if she realized the gravity of her own words. They sealed the crate carefully and carried it across the bridge. The sunlight reflected off the still water, turning the island's image upside down, as though history itself were mirrored there, waiting to be seen the right way up again. 2 hours later, William sat in the back of a Range Rover as it made its way through winding countryside roads toward Oxford. The bronze container sat beside him, secured in Dr. Chen's climate control case. He couldn't take his eyes off it. Every rattle of the road made him flinch. His mind spun with possibilities. Was it a family heirloom, a time capsule, or something far older, something deliberately hidden from the world? He thought of his mother again. Her quiet fascination with ancestry, her deep sense of history. She used to tell him, Our family carries stories the world's forgotten, William. One day, they'll find their voice again. The memory stung now, almost prophetic. When they arrived, Dr. Chen led them through the grand doors of a laboratory, a converted Victorian manor filled with glass cases, scanners, and delicate instruments that hummed softly. First, she explained, we'll X-ray it. That will show us what's inside without breaking the seal. William stood behind her as the machine began its quiet scan. The images appeared gradually on a monitor, shades of gray forming faint outlines. Letters, Dr. Chen said in awe. Several, by the look of it, and something small, perhaps jewelry or medallion. Letters? William whispered. From whom? She zoomed in on the image. If these date back to 1786, then possibly from George Spencer himself, or earlier. Whatever's inside, it was sealed intentionally. See how the box edges are fused? This was meant to protect its contents for centuries. When the scan finished, Dr. Chen turned to William. We can open it carefully. It's locked, but the mechanism looks intact. I can work it without damaging the container. William nodded. Do it. For 4 to 5 long minutes, the only sounds were the click of tools and the quiet hum of concentration. Finally, there was a soft snap. Dr. Chen lifted the lid. A faint breath of ancient air escaped, dry and papery, the scent of centuries past. Inside lay bundles of leather-wrapped documents, bound with faded red ribbon. Beneath them, something gleamed, a small, round medallion, silver and engraved with intricate markings. Dr. Chen whispered, My God, these letters are from the 18th century. Look, the Spencer family seal. But this, she lifted the medallion carefully. This is something else entirely. William leaned closer. What are those symbols around the edge? They look like astronomical signs, or codes, she murmured. This isn't just decoration. It's deliberate. She gently unwrapped the first bundle of documents. The handwriting was elegant, curling, written with quill and ink in the old formal style. At the top of the first letter was a name, George Spencer, Earl Spencer, 1786. Dr. Chen read softly, "My dear descendant, if you are reading this, then the secret I have carried has finally come to light. What I am about to reveal will change your understanding of our family forever." William's heart pounded. The words blurred in front of his eyes. This wasn't just a letter from the past. It was a voice reaching across centuries, speaking directly to him. Dr. Chen looked up, her eyes wide. "Your Highness, this may not just be a family keepsake. This might be a revelation meant for you." The room felt charged, as if time itself had bent to let the past speak again. William stared at the letter, his mother's face flickering through his mind, her grace, her compassion, her quiet strength. And in that moment, he knew, whatever truth these papers contained, it would not only reshape royal history, it would finally explain who Diana Spencer had always been, not just a people's princess, but something much deeper, a daughter of kings. The faint rustle of parchment filled the room as Dr. Sarah Chen carefully unfolded each ancient letter. The old leather wrappings cracked softly, like brittle whispers from another time. Prince William sat silently beside her, his eyes fixed on the fragile papers. Each page carried the weight of history, not the kind told in textbooks or official archives, but the kind that had been deliberately hidden. Dr. Chen adjusted her glasses and began to read aloud. "The year is 1786, and I write this in my final days, knowing that what I have discovered must not die with me. Our family's connection to the royal bloodline runs deeper than anyone knows." She paused, glancing at William. "These aren't ordinary letters. This is a confession, or a revelation, from George Spencer himself." William leaned forward. "What does he mean by deeper?" Dr. Chen turned the page carefully. "Listen to this. The documents in my possession prove that the Spencer line descends not merely from nobility, but from the very blood of kings. I have uncovered proof, long buried and long denied, that our ancestor, Sir John Spencer, was a legitimate son of King Edward IV. The words seemed to echo in the room. William blinked, stunned. Edward IV? As in the Plantagenet line? 15th century. Dr. Chen nodded slowly, her voice steady but charged. "If this is authentic, and every indication suggests it is, it means the Spencers are direct descendants of the Plantagenet kings. That would make your mother, Diana, royal by blood long before she ever married into the House of Windsor." For a long moment, the air between them was silent. Only the hum of the lab equipment filled the space. William swallowed hard. "My God!" Dr. Chen unfolded the next document, a faded genealogical chart drawn in careful ink. Lines of descent flowed across the page like veins in marble, tracing centuries of connection. "There," she said, pointing with her gloved finger. "Edward IV John Spencer, born 1469 Henry Spencer, the first recorded Spencers of Althorpe. It's all here." William studied it, tracing the lineage with his eyes. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate, the work of someone who knew its importance. "Do you realize what this means?" Dr. Chen whispered. "If true, this would make Diana's bloodline one of the oldest surviving royal lines in Britain, older even than the Windsor line that came later." William sat back, speechless. Images flooded his mind. His mother standing at the balcony of Buckingham Palace, radiant and out of place all at once, her struggles to fit into the royal mold, the cruel irony of being called a commoner. "History called her a commoner," he said quietly. "All those years, they said she didn't belong. And yet," he gestured toward the parchment, "she might have been more royal than any of them." Dr. Chen smiled faintly, understanding the emotion behind his words. Sometimes history hides its truest stories when no one thinks to look. She picked up the next letter. The handwriting was smaller, shakier, perhaps written near the end of the writer's life. "I have found proof hidden in the private papers of 3 royal houses. The Spencer bloodline descends not just from Edward IV, but through marriage into the line of Richard III. I have recorded every document and sealed them here, that future generations may know their rightful heritage." William's heart thudded in his chest. "So, 2 royal bloodlines." "Yes," Dr. Chen said softly. "That would make Diana, and her descendants, the living union of both Plantagenet kings. A double royal heritage. She reached for another parchment, examining the red wax seal still faintly visible. "And this one," she murmured, "is different. It appears to be a copy of a baptismal record. The name here is John, natural son of His Majesty Edward IV." William stayed, his voice barely audible. If that's genuine, then the entire narrative of English succession changes. Dr. Chen nodded gravely. "It would mean that your mother's lineage was deliberately kept out of royal records, perhaps to avoid political conflict during the Tudor ascension. History has a way of silencing truths that threaten the established order." He leaned back, eyes distant. "And now it's resurfaced, right where she's buried." Dr. Chen looked at him curiously. "You think she knew?" William hesitated. "I don't know, but she always said she felt drawn to that island, like it spoke to her somehow. Maybe it wasn't just peace she felt there. Maybe it was recognition." The words hung in the air like mist. They spent hours carefully cataloging every document, photographing, scanning, and sealing them for preservation. By midnight, 12 letters lay neatly arranged on the table, alongside 3 formal charts and a small silver medallion that shimmered under lab lights. Dr. Chen held up the medallion. "This is something remarkable. See these markings? They're astronomical, possibly coded. A cipher, perhaps." "What kind of code?" William asked. "I'm not certain," she admitted. "But I've seen something like it in royal correspondences from periods of political turmoil, hidden messages, used to verify authenticity." William studied it closely. Tiny symbols encircled its edge. Stars, crowns, even what looked like a rose and a lion intertwined. Could this be a key to verifying the documents? Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "Exactly what I was thinking. The medallion may contain coordinates or symbols that point to supporting evidence elsewhere. If that's true, this isn't just proof. It's a map." A map. The idea struck William like lightning. What if George Spencer hadn't just preserved history? What if he'd hidden it across England, waiting for someone worthy to find it? Dr. Chen packed the materials carefully, her tone hushed. "We'll need further analysis, carbon dating, ink composition, handwriting comparison. But even now, every test so far points to authenticity. These aren't forgeries. They're real." William nodded, his mind still reeling. "How long before you can confirm everything?" "For preliminary results, a week. Full authentication might take a month." He exhaled slowly. "Do it. Whatever it takes." As she sealed the box for transfer, he found himself staring at one phrase from the first letter, burned into his mind like prophecy. "When the time comes for old bloodlines to merge with new, the truth shall reveal itself." He whispered the words aloud. "Old bloodlines to merge with new." Dr. Chen met his eyes. "You realize what that means, don't you?" William nodded faintly. "It's talking about my parents. Diana Spencer marrying into the House of Windsor. That wasn't coincidence. It was destiny." For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the machines faded into the quiet pulse of history itself. At last, William stood, straightening his jacket. "Keep the document safe. Doctor, not a word to anyone until I say." "You have my word, Your Highness." He turned toward the window, gazing out into the Oxford night, the street lamps glowing like small torches against the dark. Somewhere, far away, the island at Althorpe waited in silence. The wind that moved through its lime trees now carried the faintest echo of truth, a secret that had slept for 500 years, finally stirring to life. And for the first time in decades, Prince William felt his mother close, not as memory, but as presence, as if Diana herself was whispering through time, guiding him toward the truth she had always deserved. Dawn was breaking over Althorpe once again. Soft rays of sunlight pierced the mist, illuminating the lake in gold. The island lay quiet, serene, but it was no longer just a place of rest. It had become a bridge between centuries. Prince William stood on the shore, watching the water ripple gently around the wooden bridge. The memories of the past weeks played in his mind like scenes from another lifetime. The unearthing of the ancient box, the long nights in Dr. Chen's lab, the shock of reading those letters, and the overwhelming realization that his mother's bloodline was royal long before the world ever knew her name. The evidence was irrefutable. Dr. Chen's team had completed every test: ink composition, paper fibers, handwriting comparisons, all of it authentic. The medallion-coated engravings, once deciphered, had led them to hidden compartments across England, behind chapel altars, in cathedral archives, and even within the private walls of Windsor Castle itself. Each location revealed new fragments of truth: baptismal records, personal letters, and royal decrees that confirmed the unimaginable. The Spencer family wasn't merely noble. They were royal, direct descendants of King Edward IV and the Plantagenet line, the original rulers of England. It changed everything, not in a way that threatened the monarchy or rear it in crowns, but in a way far more powerful. It restored something that had been unjustly taken. Diana, Princess of Wales, had always been royal, by birth, by blood, by right. William remembered the moment the final authentication came in, Dr. Chen calling him late in the evening, her voice trembling with awe. "Your Highness," she'd said, "it's real. Every document checks out. Your mother's lineage connects directly to Edward IV through the Spencer line. Diana wasn't just a people's princess. She was a princess by heritage." He had hung up the phone in silence. For a long time, he simply sat staring at his mother's photograph, the one where she was laughing, head tilted, eyes shining with that mix of warmth and mischief the world adored. And he realized she had always known who she was. Even if she didn't have the documents, she had carried that truth in her spirit. Now, it was his turn to make sure the world knew it too. Weeks later, inside the Grand Library at Althorpe, history was rewritten before a gathering of the world's most respected historians. Representatives from Oxford, Cambridge, and the Royal Historical Society examined every document under glass. The atmosphere was electric, reverent, as if time itself had paused to bear witness. When Dr. Elena Rodriguez from Harvard's Medieval Studies Department delivered the final verdict, the room fell into a stunned silence. After extensive testing and analysis, she announced, "We confirm that the Spencer family descends directly from the royal Plantagenet bloodline. The evidence is overwhelming and historically consistent. Princess Diana was of royal descent." William closed his eyes. For the first time in 3 decades, he felt peace. The headlines that followed across the world were explosive, not scandal, but celebration. Diana was royal all along. The princess who never knew she was born to be queen. Millions of people wept, not because the story was tragic, but because it was healing. Every insult, every cruel tabloid headline, every whisper that she didn't belong, it all crumbled in the light of truth. The woman who had walked into the royal world as an outsider had, in truth, been returning home. The BBC documentary premiered 6 months later on the 30th anniversary of Diana's death. Titled Diana, The Royal Heritage, it was narrated by Prince William himself. The opening shot showed him walking slowly across the bridge at Althorpe, mist rising from the water, the lime trees swaying gently behind him. His voice, calm but filled with emotion, spoke over the scene. "My mother chose this island as her resting place because she found peace here. None of us knew then that it guarded a secret, one that would change everything we thought we knew about who she truly was." The film took viewers through every step of the discovery: the storm, the buried box, the letters, the genealogies, all verified, all real. But it wasn't the history that made people cry. It was the heart. When William looked into the camera and said, "My mother wasn't trying to learn how to be royal. She was remembering what it meant to be one." The world felt the truth of it. From London to Los Angeles, from Pakistan to Paris, people lit candles, sent flowers, and shared stories of how Diana had changed their lives. She was no longer just a people's princess. She was England's lost daughter restored. 2 years later, William returned to the island with George and Charlotte. The memorial had been subtly updated. A new plaque placed beside the original stone, engraved in silver letters that glowed in the morning sun. Diana Spencer, Princess of Wales, daughter of the House of Spencer, descendant of Edward IV, mother of future kings. A life lived with grace and dignity, in service to her people and her blood. Charlotte traced her fingers over the words, her eyes wide. So Granny Diana was really descended from kings. William smiled, Kneeling beside her, she was, "Darling, from some of the greatest England ever had." George, thoughtful, asked quietly, "Does that make us more royal?" William chuckled softly. "It makes us part of a story that began long before any of us were born. But being royal isn't about bloodlines, George. It's about what you do with them." As they stood there together, sunlight filtered through the lime trees, the same trees that had once sheltered Diana's secret. Now they stood guard over her truth, their leaves whispering softly in the breeze. For the first time in centuries, the story was complete. Diana Spencer, the woman who had been mocked, misunderstood, and mythologized, was finally recognized for who she truly was. A daughter of kings, a mother of A's, and the beating heart of a dynasty reborn. William closed his eyes, hearing the quiet ripple of the lake and the soft rustle of leaves. In that peaceful sound, he could almost hear her laughter, bright, free, and finally at rest. And so, nearly 30 years after her passing, the truth beneath Diana's island was revealed. Not a scandal, not a myth, but a legacy. She wasn't just a people's princess. She was royalty in her very blood. What began as a storm that shook the lime trees of Althorpe ended as a revelation that shook history itself. If you watched this far, thank you for walking through this journey of love, legacy, and truth. If Diana's story moved you, if you still believe that grace, kindness, and courage are the true marks of royalty, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with others. Because some legacies don't fade with time. They rise, like the morning light over Althorpe, forever.